with poet Amando Garcia Davila. Did I say that essentially right? It's always the word poet that I get hung up on.
Me too.
How does one? Yeah, everyone does. Everyone does.
Yeah.
Poetry's in a very peculiar state these days, and but you're out there doing it, and you're a humorist, as I understand, with a bit of a reading to start us off here.
Oh, well, I don't have a humorous poem to read.
No, you will humor us.
Oh, humor us. I got it. Well, this is not humorous, and I'm see if I can humor you. All right.
Okay.
This is called El Otro Lado. He stands at the river's edge. Wisps of clouds turn red in the coming dawn. Some flying insects escape the jaws of large-mouthed fish in the hovering mist. To his back the motherland, with sad breasts deplete of milk. To his back is woman and offspring. Ah, but to his front, the land of a foreign tongue and foreign ways, peopled with those who will either hate or pity him. To his front, a chance to prove himself, a chance to provide for those dependent on his muscle and dreams. To his front, mountains of work in El Norte, where there is labor for 1,000,000 strong men. On ranches, one must stoop and strain and lug and bend, and there are countless herds of sheep and cattle and horses to tend. There is work in factories, estates, kitchens, and in the fields, work pouring cement, driving nails, planting trees, and serving meals. There's labor by day, labor by night, labor on the day of rest, putting the stamina of legs and backs and arms to the test. And there's never-ending work in vineyard and in orchard, from horizon to endless horizon. And the river, the great dividing river, flows slowly, calmly, deliberately, as if no one has ever drowned while being pursued through its currents in the angry season of tumultuous waters. As if there were never a time of a ravenous torrent with an insatiable appetite that consumes all things, from the docile cow to the venomous viper, and any other man or beast or flower or tree that dares it. The river burdened with the task of dividing avarice-plagued nations. But on this day, and in this dawn, this river that perpetually moves from the yesterday to the tomorrow and is yet perpetually in the here, seduces this man, lures him to ford its waters, invites him to look into his future. He gazes into a pool to see not a man in tattered pants and a worn-out sombrero, but the image of a caballero, a gentleman, a man of means who stands straight and pays his own way, and on Sundays he takes his family to church in an automobile. There, reflected in the baptismal water, is a man in fine clothes, with hair that is combed and trimmed regularly. This is what the big river offers. And it is all his to seize if he simply crosses to El Otro Lado, undetected by those who would keep him from his destiny.
Wow, that's a great piece.
Thank you.
Well written and well read, certainly.
Thank you.
This experience of your narrating character here, the character to whom you're speaking, writing, at that twilight between past and possibility, were you ever that guy? Were you ever, I mean, we all are to some degree.
Yeah.
But in the literal sense?
No, I can't think of, except for when I stood before my dad about ready to get in trouble as a kid. But no, my parents came here from Mexico, and they got green cards. But this sort of reflects the experience of a lot of, well, everybody knows, a lot of immigrants that come here.
Yeah. The poignancy, you know, and the sort of trepidation one begins to feel for this guy. When you compose these works, what language are you using in your head?
Depends on the muse. Sometimes the muse comes in Spanish, and sometimes she comes in English.
Really?
It just depends. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll write them in Spanish and then translate them in English. But by and large, they're written in English first, and then they're translated later.
Anything lost in that process, or gained, perhaps?
It's a real tricky. Exercise.
Yeah.
In trying to capture the spirit rather than the letter.
Yeah. Well put. So let's go back in time a little bit. When did you realize you were a poet? When did that emerge in you?
Well, when I started writing poetry, I never liked it. I never liked it in high school and in college. I didn't understand it. Wanted nothing to do with it.
What was your field of interest then, do you think?
Well, My identical twin brother and I were class clowns, and we were really good at it. And never was a very good student.
Yeah.
I got more serious about it when I went to college, but certainly not through Catholic grammar school and Catholic high school.
How could you? I mean, you know.
The way I started writing poetry was when my marriage of almost 23 years came to a sudden end. And for the first time in my life, I found myself living alone in a cabin out in the woods. And
where are we now? Are we in California?
yeah, oh yes, yes.
Okay.
I've been living in Sonoma County since 1974,
Okay.
and the marriage ended in 1997. So I wound up getting a little place out in the woods and living alone for the first time. I was raised with 6 brothers and sisters,
Right.
married, raised 2 kids, and always noise, you know.
Right.
And all of a sudden, everything was quiet, and I was rather distraught about the whole thing. And
Did you choose the quiet? Were you seeking the quiet, or?
no,
Yeah.
I never seek quiet. I come from loud.
Yeah.
Trumpets and violins and the music, you know, and so I all of a sudden it was quiet, and I was not, maybe distraught is too strong a word, but certainly disorientated.
Mhm.
There was a tectonic shift in my life, and I wasn't sure what it was about or how to handle it. And all of a sudden, everything I started writing was poetry. And a friend of mine said, "That's really good poetry, Armando." I said, "No, I don't like poetry. I don't understand it. I don't write." No, that's what this is. There's stanzas, there's verses, there's metaphor. You know, there's similes, and
But also you could construe it as prose poetry to a degree.
okay,
It
sure,
doesn't have that
sure.
overwrought poetical voice. It has a very sort of lucid voice.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, did you make a choice between poetry and prose?
No,
Yeah,
no.
it's
When I started writing, maybe let me think. It would have been about 8 years before that. When I started writing seriously, it was all stories about growing up Catholic in a large Mexican family, and the white world out there and the Mexican world in the house, and how it was hard to maneuver. You know.
You seem to exist in these dualities like that, not just in
Yes,
your
yes.
personal life, but going from the noise to the silence and that kind of thing. Let's pick up on some of these themes when we come back with Amando Garcia Davila, poet and author. So, right back.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
We're with poet Amando Garcia Davila, and in the break we're talking about the nature of, before the break we're talking about the nature of duality, and in terms of how it has manifested in your life, but it's not just, the obvious sort of symbolic notions, poetic notions we could say about being there or here, or, but oftentimes it's like, how do you navigate a career as a poet, and live in the real world?
Mm-hmm.
How do you make that work?
Well, I was a landscape contractor for almost 30 years, worked hard and wrote on the side.
Yeah.
And now I'm semi-retired, which allows me wonderful, wonderful time to work.
So what's your day like? I mean, how do you begin?
My day starts before dawn.
Really?
I get up on my own. I can't wait to get to the studio. I'm blessed to have a writing studio. It was a gift given from heaven.
And it's actually separate from your.
It's separate from the house.
That's
it's
great.
A beautiful little studio, and it was a gift given to me. And so,
how do you get gifted a studio?
Well, you pray for a benefactor, and a rich old lady comes along and loves you and your wife and adopts you as her children and loves your writing and builds you a studio. Simple.
Well done. Yeah.
Simple. And so, so the day. Go ahead.
Oh, do you mind? Do you want to talk about?
Elaborate?
Oh, we just maybe
sure,
who she is, give her a shout out or not.
Yeah. Well, her name. No, her name is. Her name was Doris Grazer, and met her in her later years. Did a landscape work for her, and basically we fell in love with each other.
Yeah.
And she met my wife and loved her, and never had kids. Her husband was very sick at the time, so we took care of both of them. And then he wound up in a convalescent hospital, so we'd pick him up every Sunday morning, take him home, spend the day, make dinner, take him back until he passed away. And so
nice how the community though kind of comes together like that. Yeah.
So she called me, and she officially adopted me at 50 years old. And
you say officially, like
50 plus, which she did all the paper, went to a lawyer, got everything drawn up.
You were actually adopted.
I'm adopted at 50, so I was an orphan. What can I say? And so she called me Sonny Boy, and I called her Mommy Dearest.
That's pretty cool, man.
So anyhow, so my day begins before dawn in the studio, and a short day of writing will be 2 hours. A normal day is 3 or 4. A good day, when the work is flowing and I got the time, it'll be up to 6 hours.
Wow.
And then I get upset because my head's exploding, but I want to keep going.
And during that creative sort of fugue
And
state,
that's 7 days a week.
Wow.
7 days a week.
I mean, that's real dedication.
No, it's passion. There's a
There you
big
go.
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, passion versus dedication.
Passion is when you do something a lot, and not because you have to do it or because you're getting paid. It's because it's just what you do. I was
sort of like my job. It's not a passion. No.
your passion is writing. I can tell by your novel. I can tell by your novel.
Thanks.
I've been enjoying it. So yeah, it's my passion. I don't have any discipline in any other part of my life, be it managing money or being on time places, or but for whatever reason, I'm driven to spend. And maybe part of it is that's when it's quiet. That's my quiet time. I'm not good with quiet time. I always have a radio on or noise, but for some reason that focuses me, and then I get the images and I start to, write them.
When you say images, I mean you're not thinking in terms of the musicality or the words themselves. You see.
I get images. I have, I guess, what you would call vivid dreams.
Okay.
Some of them are epic, and they're very clear messages I get, and sometimes it's an inspiration, and I'll work on it, and sure enough, it'll turn into something.
And then, I mean, I hope you don't mind me getting to the minutiae of your process, but it's interesting to me as a writer.
Sure.
Do you draft? Do you reiterate, or does it come to you whole? I mean,
rarely does it come whole.
Okay.
And it's usually like that poem I just recited, El Otro Lado. I worked on that for probably 6 months, and I got frustrated. And I put it aside, and I read what I had to my wife. I said, "What do you think?" And she said, "Armando, you have to finish that one."
Yeah.
So I grinded it out again, and it finally settled to what it's supposed to be.
Well, it's got obvious refinement. I mean, it's really a polished piece. But when you do rewrite, I mean, do you shred it? Do you cut it? Do you start from beginning? I mean,
No. You just keep working on it, and then you take your red pen, and this word should go up here, and this line needs to go out, and then you're driving around town, and then all of a sudden a word comes.
Right.
Like when the man stares into the pool, the baptismal water.
Right.
So he'll be baptized when he crosses. I mean, things like that come when you're in the least expected.
That's your unconscious at work, I think.
There was one poem that won a best of show poem among a whole bunch of poets, probably 50, 60 poets, and it's called El Gran Viento, the Great Wind. And I was working on it, and I couldn't come up with a metaphor. And I tried to, what is it, something you cannot stop? The flood of people coming from the south to the north. And I thought, well, a flood, but then the flood settles down. A stampede, but then that stops. And then maybe 3 in the morning, I woke up, and the first line came to me: "A great wind blows from the south to the north. You can't stop the wind."
There you go.
And then from that was one of the few pieces that almost came out verbatim.
Wow. Yeah.
One of the few.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's, you've heard that genius is 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration.
Right.
And I find that to be true. You just keep working at something.
And it's God bless you for having the space to be able to do that.
God bless Doris.
Yeah.
I thank her every day, every morning.
So when you became the poet laureate of Healdsburg, how does that function? I mean, do they just knock on your door and say, "Hey, Armando, it's
No.
here's your scepter and your crown"?
One of my first public readings, after I'd been writing for quite a while, was in Healdsburg. They had a program for writers to present from their work in different venues. It was like once a month for 6 months. And someone told me about it, that I should go up and read. So I did. And the people that were there were part of a literary group. And some of them came up to me afterwards and said, we really like your work a lot. Would you be available to read in the afternoon session? And of course I was flattered and I fell in love with them immediately. You know, that is, someone likes your work and you like them. So, so I went for the afternoon session, and then they asked me if I would consider joining the literary group. And so I did. So I would drive from Santa Rosa to Healdsburg to do literary functions, plan things and present. And then they decided, the arts community decided to sponsor a laureate of Healdsburg. So Doug Stout was the first laureate.
That's right, yeah.
And then I was the second laureate.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, what really happens when you're laureate? I mean, they bring you to the secret.
It's up to you. No, it's up to you. What you do is when you're vying for the laureate and you do a presentation, there's a night where there's a vote takes place. You tell them what your image is or what your vision is as a laureate, and of course you present some of your work. And mine was that I wanted to work with younger people, with students, because there are future, writers, future laureates. And so once I became laureate, I went to junior high schools and high schools and taught poetry, presented. And
let's pick up with that in the next segment here. We're talking with Amando Garcia Davila about poetry, and we'll move to the future of poetry, which you've been instrumental in shaping locally when we come back.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
We're with Amando Garcia Davila, poet, recently the Poet Laureate of Healdsburg, and we were talking about the nature of where poetry is going. One of the things you did as laureate is make a commitment to bringing poetry to younger people. Now, I, having been once a younger person, long time ago, I remember being drawn into poetry because it was sort of an easy way to get in front of people and have my moment without having to deal with a band, right? But that was in the 90s, and there was kind of a split that occurred where poetry went to poetry slams, or arguably sort of hip hop culture appropriated a lot of that energy. And I'm wondering what's different these days, and how are you reaching these kids?
Well, I'm not as public as I used to be, and that's what I'm saying by that is I don't go to the schools much anymore.
Yeah.
There was a time when I was very, very public, and what I found was my work suffered as a result. So now I'm all but a recluse. I do very few public presentations.
Which is why this is such a valuable interview. You're like, where's that guy?
And I spend more time doing the work. I've come to understand that the work is the most important. I got sort of drunk with notoriety,
right?
And I wanted to be a rock star, and it was fun. And I sold books and I sold CDs, and people knew who I was. And it was great fun.
You were featured in colleges. They taught your books.
Yes.
Yeah.
But now I'm realizing that the work is what's important, and if the work is good work, it'll do what it's going to do.
You say that with almost a repentant tone. I mean, how far out can a poet rock star get? I mean, what happened, man?
I had visions of marquees,
Right.
and women throwing their keys to their rooms.
You ever trash a hotel room after a meeting?
No. So let's see. So what I would, I'll just tell you what I did in high schools. They would introduce me, and I would read usually a funny poem, just to kind of get the attention. And then I'd give a little talk on poetry, how I got involved in it, what it means, what it can mean, and the fact that you can say anything you want.
There you go. Yeah.
And so there's a freedom there. And in fact, you don't even need punctuation or correct spelling. And to bring the point home, I wrote a poem with not one punctuation mark.
That's great. And did they respond to this anarchic notion? Yeah.
So I would read them some pieces, love poems. I'd get on my knee and embarrass one of the girls and do a couple funny things, and I'd talk about something that happened to me that was very personal and tragic, and how hard it was, and the poem that came out of it. So then at the end of the class, I would challenge them all to write a poem in 5 minutes, and then we would hear them, and the teacher and I would rate them, and then I had prizes.
Yeah.
And one was like a gift certificate to McDonald's, another one was a $5 bill, another one was a signed book, and
Right.
it was great. And some of the poetry that came out of these kids, I mean, there was more than once that the teacher and I got misty-eyed.
Oh, wow.
Because of what they shared, you know.
Did they need the permission, you think, to approach poetry with the freedom that you made available?
I don't know that they need the freedom, but certainly if you can explain to someone the possibilities and the rewards and the fact that there's no rules. I mean, kids have rules, right? They have rules with their parents. If they go to church, they have church rules. If they go to school, they got to be at school, and they can't be off campus. They have to have a hall pass.
Right.
There's these little prisons, you know, and all of a sudden someone's coming to them and saying, you can do whatever you want here. There are no rules, and you can say what you want. Now, the things you say, you may not want everyone to hear, but at least for me, I found out that writing, when I was really hurt,
Yeah.
it helped tremendously in the healing. It's therapeutic.
Yeah, it seems like writing brings you to a point of balance, and the sort of ritualized aspect that's come to you through writing,
Okay.
like the dedication and getting up, or the passion, as you say, getting up every morning at dawn, going to your studio and actually committing to the work, or having the work commit to you as it occurs. It seems like that has brought a certain balance to your life. I mean, you're a very sage and calm individual, at least in this context. You know, I'm getting mellow, you know, but
Prozac works wonders.
oh, Prozac, not Prose. Right,
Prozac.
right.
Oh, there you go. Good one. Prose. Nice one.
It's reaching,
nice
that's a
one.
reach.
Nice one. Nice one.
But what has poetry given you? You know,
Well,
you mentioned the award, the rewards that.
when I guess this is true of anyone, when you dig deep and you see what's inside of you and you're able to express it, not just express it, but the fact that you have to sit there and think about the words you're using and the feelings that you're describing within yourself, there's a tremendous therapy there. And for me, writing has helped me to become a more well-rounded individual. I think it's through writing, and maybe maturity as well, that I found myself to be comfortable in my own skin, not having to prove myself to anyone, being who I am, and if it's accepted, wonderful. If not, then I have no control over that. But it's helped me to become, I guess, like sort of a full person.
Yeah.
You know, it's very liberating and wonderful, and it allows me, once you understand who you are and you accept who you are, then life is so much, and you can clown around a lot. It's wonderful. You know, I'm a great clown.
Yeah, it sounds like it gives you a space to have a dialogue with yourself, and sort of get to know yourself. Or
That's therapy.
Yeah.
It's therapy.
Yeah. But poetry has more than a therapeutic aspect. I mean,
It
poetry
certainly has a beauty to it, an aesthetic.
Yeah.
You know, when the words come out in a cadence, even if they don't rhyme, there's like in the poem that I recited, I found a cadence in it, and there's the definition for art. My definition for art is if you see a painting, or you hear a piece of music, or you read a piece of writing, and for that moment, you don't think of anything else. You don't think of your debts. You don't think of problems. You don't think of world issues. Your whole being is taken by this beauty, this beautiful, like when the Ave Maria is sung correctly, I go to tears. That's the most beautiful piece of music. Or when I see a painting of, I remember when I was a kid, I saw a Dali, Salvador Dali painting of Jesus on the cross, and you're looking at the fisherman down below, and just the colors and the subject. I was really, really taken by it.
I'm with you there. There's something about
A piece of music, you know, everyone experiences that. There's a piece of music that moves them, whether it's, you know, punk rock or classical.
Yeah, and there's that moment where a revelation can occur. You know, when you're stopped and your total consciousness has been caught by this.
In the theater, when there's a good actor or actress and they nail a scene, the entire theater is with them in that moment. That's art.
Yeah.
That's art. And that's what I mean, that's what I strive for. I don't know if I reach it often enough, but that's what I strive for.
I think you accomplish it. We're with Armando Garcia Davila. Thank you for sharing your work with us today and being on the show. I hope you come back.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, good times.
It's wonderful.